Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Monday morning. And just some massive news for this Nebraska football program as Matt Rhule, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, go all the way to Knoxville, Tennessee, and hire Mike Ekeler to take over the special teams coordinator job heading into 2025. Surface level analysis. Nebraska is going from one of the worst special teams coordinators in the country, Ned Foley, to one of the best ones in Tennessee's Mike Ekeler. And you look at it, and that's not just me making a broad statement. That's what the numbers tell you when you start diving into this one. You look at numbers like the EPA numbers. Nebraska was losing so much value on special teams in 2024. You could make the argument it costed Nebraska football games in 2024. You look at Mike Ekeler. I mean, the special teams unit for Tennessee, one of the best in the country over the last couple of years. This national media narrative around Nebraska not being able to win close games, want to know a really good way to give you that 1% and kind of put you over the hump in some of those games, having elite special teams. And that's what I think Nebraska gets with Mike Ekeler. We're going to look at the numbers and just compare what Mike Ekeler's unit looked like at Tennessee in 2024 against what Ed Foley's unit at Nebraska looked like. It is night and day stark difference. Nebraska's getting significantly better at the special teams coordinator job with this hiring. Look, we normally don't break down special team coordinator hires because normally they don't matter all that much. This one, to me, seems like it matters a ton. Want to get into some of the numbers, want to talk about what Mike Ekeler brings to this Nebraska program before we get into it. As always, to the Nebraska fans, it's been really fun talking this team the last couple of months, right? A lot of changes from a personnel standpoint, a lot of changes to the coaching staff. I've had a blast talking this football program. The amount of support y'all continue to show means the absolute world. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, let it fly in the comment section. Again, normally these special team coordinator hires, I'm not sure the impact they have. I feel like this one means a ton for this Nebraska program heading into 2025. Let's get into it. Let's start with punting. Nebraska in 2024, 4 blocked punts. Mike Ekeler's Tennessee units, the last 2 years, 0. Blocked punt, that just starts with details and discipline. And you look at Nebraska and just the disaster that we saw, not only really with punting, but throughout every special teams operation. Lack of organization, certainly lack of execution. That's where it starts, and that's something that I think highlights the effectiveness of Mike Ekeler in the details of how he runs special teams. You going from 4 blocked punts in 2024 for Nebraska, Mike Ekeler 0 blocked punts in the last 2 years at Tennessee. Let's look at net punting. Nebraska averaged only 39 yards per punt and gave up 13.7 yards per punt return. You look at Tennessee averaging over 40 yards per punt, only giving up 7.3 yards per punt return. That's almost a full 10 yards of field position just on punt coverage. And so you're not giving up blocked punts. You're covering punts extremely effectively. Those are things that you talk about losses by a field goal. You talk about losses by 1 or 2, 3 points. You can find those points in the margins of punting. And then you take a look at field goals. I mean, I look at 68% for Nebraska was a disaster, missed some extra points as well, to 76% for Tennessee. And then the last one in punt returns. I mean, Nebraska was a non-factor in punt returns last year. They averaged 4.6 yards per return. Mike Ekeler's unit in 2024, 13.4. That's another 10 yards of field position, kind of hidden yards that you have in special teams. So you're getting 10 yards and hidden yards in terms of punt coverage. You're getting 10 yards of hitting yards in punt returns as well. That's 20 yards on both sides of punting, along with better operations, kicking field goals. To me, you talk about finding that 1%. Mike Ekeler might be able to give that to Nebraska. Now, there are some other, I think, intriguing storylines here with Mike Ekeler. One, just as a football coach, just quick YouTube search of Mike Ekeler. Football guy through and through, a coach that you want on the staff, and a coach that has worked for a lot of really good head coaches over the last couple of years, and really over the last 20 years since he's been around college football. I think finally, you don't really talk about this when you're talking about special teams coordinators. he's kind of a lead on the recruiting trail. Like when I dive into Mike Ekeler, what does he do on the recruiting trail? You start scrolling down. I mean, responsible for a lot of blue chip prospects that have made their way to Knoxville, Tennessee, and over his other stops in the SEC and in the Big Ten. I look at Mike Ekeler and say, first and foremost, you're hiring him to clean up the special teams operations, not have special teams cost Nebraska football games in 2025. You're clearly going to get that. In fact, you're probably going from a net pretty good negative on special teams to arguably a special teams unit that's going to allow you to really help you win football games as opposed to lose you football games. And you get a Nebraska native that is coached in the state of Nebraska at the high school level, that's proven to be a good recruiter, that's a guy that players want to play for. We normally don't give flowers to special team coordinator hires. In fact, I don't think I could tell you all the power for special team coordinators. This one, to me, it matters in a big way. You went from one of the worst special teams operations and coaches in 2024 to arguably what I think could be one of the best in 2025. That can win you football games in the 2025 year. It's hard to find that, and I think Nebraska did. We'll close it out there. Wanted to hop on and talk about this one. Getting a lot of value from Mike Ekeler, not only as a special teams coordinator, but also a recruiter. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Peace.